I've always been that guy who just can't shut up, seriously. Give me 5 seconds of awkward silence and I'll fill it with a story. A joke, some random observation about the weather. Anything. My whole life. People told me I had the gift of gab. Teacher said I should go into sales. Friends said I could talk my way out of anything. And you know what? They were right. By the time I hit 32, I'd built an entire career on never letting a conversation die. I worked in sales. Corporate stuff. The kind where you make cold calls all day and try to convince strangers they need something they didn't know existed 5 minutes ago. If I stopped talking, I stopped making money. Simple as that. So I never stopped. Phone calls, meetings, networking events. I was always on. Always performing. Always 3 steps ahead, planning what I'd say next while you were still talking. It was exhausting, but it was all I knew. That Wednesday evening in October started like any other. Rain was pouring down outside, one of those Seattle storms where the sky just opens up and doesn't stop. My buddy Tyler was opening his first art gallery, and even though I didn't know much about art, I figured I'd show up. Support a friend, maybe meet some people, maybe make a connection that could turn into a client. That's how my brain worked. Every person was a potential opportunity. I walked in shaking water off my umbrella, grabbed one of those tiny plastic cups of wine they pretend is champagne, and started my usual scan of the room. You know that thing where you're not really looking at people, you're looking for angles? Yeah, that was me. Who looks successful? Who looks friendly? Who looks like they might need my services? The gallery was packed with the usual art crowd. People in clothes that probably cost more than my rent, all standing around pretending they understood abstract paintings. Lots of nodding. Lots of yes, quite profound. I'd played this game before. You don't need to understand art, you just need to sound like you do. That's when I noticed her. She was standing by herself near this massive painting on the far wall. And I mean massive. Like floor to ceiling, covered in bright reds and yellows and blues swirling together in ways that either meant something deep or meant nothing at all. Hard to tell with modern art. But here's what caught my attention. She wasn't performing. Everyone else in that room was putting on a show, but she was actually looking at the painting. Really looking. Her head was tilted slightly to the side. Her hands were clasped behind her back. She wasn't checking her phone, wasn't glancing around to see who was watching her. She was just there, completely absorbed in whatever she was seeing. Something about that pulled me in. Maybe it was the challenge of breaking through to someone who seemed so focused. Maybe I was just tired of the same shallow conversations I'd been having all night. Either way, my feet started moving toward her before I'd really decided to do it. I positioned myself next to her, looked at the painting for approximately 2 seconds, and launched into my thing. Interesting piece, isn't it? I said, using my art expert voice. You know, the one that's slightly lower and sounds thoughtful. The way the artist uses color to create this sense of movement. It's almost like you can feel the energy radiating off the canvas. I was reading this article about abstract expressionism the other day, and they were talking about how it's not about depicting reality. It's about capturing pure emotion. And looking at this, I think you can really see what they meant. The red here, it's aggressive, right? But then you've got these softer blues that create this balance, this tension between chaos and calm. It's really quite remarkable when you think about the intentionality behind every brush stroke and how the artist must have been feeling when they... I kept going, words just flowing out of me like water from a faucet I couldn't turn off. I wasn't even listening to myself anymore. Half of what I was saying I'd probably heard in some documentary I watched while scrolling through my phone. The other half I was just making up on the spot. But it sounded good. It sounded impressive. That's what mattered. She still hadn't looked at me. She was still focused on the painting. For a second I thought maybe she was ignoring me. Maybe this was one of those times where I'd misread the situation and she just wanted to be left alone. But I'd committed now. I was mid-speech. Couldn't just stop and walk away, so I kept talking. Something about color theory now. Something about the way light interacts with pigment. I had no idea if any of it was accurate, and then she turned. She turned her head slowly, like she had all the time in the world, until her eyes met mine. They were brown, dark brown, the kind of brown that looks almost black in certain light, and she just looked at me. Didn't say anything. Didn't nod. Just looked, and then she smiled. But it wasn't like any smile I'd ever seen before. It didn't happen all at once. It started small, just a tiny curve at the corner of her mouth. Then it spread slowly across her face like a sunrise, taking its time, completely unhurried. Her eyes crinkled at the corners. There was something knowing in that smile, something that made me feel like she could see right through every word I'd just said, like she knew I was performing, like she knew I didn't actually care about the painting. And in that moment, something happened that hadn't happened to me in years. I forgot what I was saying. The words just vanished. Poof. Gone. I stood there with my mouth half open, probably looking like a complete idiot, totally silent. My brain had just completely emptied out. It was like someone had pulled the plug and all my usual cleverness had drained away. She kept smiling, kept looking at me with those knowing eyes. She didn't rush to fill the silence, didn't try to help me out or let me off the hook. She just waited, patient and calm, like she had nowhere else to be. The silence stretched out. 2 seconds. 5 seconds. It felt like an hour. I could hear my own heartbeat. Could hear the chatter of other people around us. Could hear rain hitting the windows. But I couldn't think of a single thing to say. "Hi," she finally said. Her voice was soft but clear. Not shy, just calm. "I'm Lily. I had to actually think about my own name for a second. I'm Dave. Nice to meet you, Dave." She turned back to the painting. "You don't really care about this painting, do you?" I could have lied. Should have lied, probably. Doubled down on my art expert routine. Proved that I knew what I was talking about. But something about that smile had made lying feel impossible. "Not even a little bit," I admitted. "I was just trying to sound interesting." She laughed. A real laugh. Not polite, not fake. Just genuine amusement. "Well, at least you're honest about it now. Want to know what I actually see when I look at this?" "Yeah," I said. And I meant it. "Yeah, I do." For the next 20 minutes, Lily talked about the painting. Really talked about it. She told me she was an architect, that she spent her days designing buildings, thinking about space and light and how physical structures make people feel things. She said this painting reminded her of her work, because it was all about emotion through structure. The colors weren't random. The composition wasn't chaos. It was controlled, intentional. Every element was there for a reason, creating this emotional experience for whoever was looking at it. And for maybe the first time in my adult life, I just listened. I didn't interrupt with my own thoughts. Didn't try to add commentary. Didn't start planning what I'd say next. I just stood there and listened to her talk. Watched the way her face lit up when she explained something she was passionate about. Noticed how her hands moved when she described the flow of the composition. She asked me questions too. Real questions. What did I do for work? What brought me to the gallery? Did I like living in Seattle? Normal stuff, but she asked it like she actually wanted to know the answers. And when I answered, she listened. Really listened. Didn't check her phone. Didn't look around the room. Just focused on me like I was the only person there. By the time the gallery started closing, I realized we'd been standing in the same spot for almost an hour. The crowd had thinned out. Tyler was starting to dim the lights. The rain outside had softened to a drizzle. "I should probably go," Lily said, but she didn't move. "Can I see you again?" The words came out before I'd planned them. No strategy. No smooth line. Just honest. She smiled again. That slow smile that had started this whole thing. I'd like that. We exchanged numbers. Made plans for coffee that weekend. Said goodnight. I walked out into the rain, and even though I was getting soaked, I didn't care. Something felt different. Like something had shifted in me that I didn't quite understand yet. I'd spent 32 years filling every silence with noise. And in 1 hour, one woman with one slow smile had made me forget every word I knew. And somehow that felt like the most important thing that had ever happened to me. That first coffee date was on Saturday morning. I showed up 15 minutes early because I was nervous, which was weird because I was never nervous. I'd been on plenty of dates. Had plenty of relationships. But something about Lily made me feel like I was doing this for the first time. I ordered my coffee and sat at a table near the window, watching people walk by, trying to calm down. I'd spent the last 2 days thinking about what I'd talk about. What stories I'd tell. What version of myself I'd present. The successful salesman. The interesting guy with the good anecdotes. The charmer. Lily walked in right on time. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup that I could see. Just natural. Just herself. She smiled when she saw me, ordered her coffee, and sat down across from me. "How's your week been?" she asked, and I was off. I told her about this big sale I'd closed on Thursday, made it sound more dramatic than it was, added some humor, threw in some details that weren't exactly true but made the story better. She listened, nodding, sipping her coffee. Then I started telling her about this book I'd been reading, except I hadn't really been reading it. I'd read maybe the first 3 chapters and then skimmed the rest, but I talked about it like I was an expert, like I'd absorbed every word. I went on about the themes and the character development and what it all meant. Halfway through my explanation, Lily set down her coffee cup. She didn't interrupt me, didn't say anything, just placed her cup carefully on the table and looked at me. I kept talking for a few more seconds, but her silence made me trail off. That smile appeared again, the slow one. But this time there was something different in it. "Something sad, Dave," she said gently. "Yeah? Did you actually read that book?" My mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "I mean, did you read it because you wanted to, or did you read it because you thought it would make you sound smart?" The question hit me like cold water. I opened my mouth to defend myself, to insist that of course I'd read it, but the words wouldn't come. Because she was right. I hadn't read it. Not really. I'd skimmed it specifically so I'd have something intellectual to talk about on dates. I stopped. Started again. I guess I thought it would be impressive. Lily reached across the table and touched my hand. Just briefly. Just for a second. "Dave, you don't have to impress me. I'm already sitting here, aren't I?" That simple sentence cracked something open in me. I realized I'd been performing since the moment I walked into the coffee shop. Hell, I'd been performing since the moment I met her at the gallery. Being charming, being entertaining, being everything except myself. I don't really know how to not do that, I admitted. Do what? Try to be impressive. It's kind of all I know how to do. She leaned back in her chair, still looking at me with those knowing eyes. "Then maybe you could learn something new." Over the next few weeks, Lily became my teacher in the strangest way. She didn't lecture me, didn't tell me I was doing things wrong. She just asked questions and waited for real answers. We'd be having dinner and she'd ask how my day was. I'd start to give the highlight reel, the entertaining version with all the boring parts edited out. And she'd just wait. She'd look at me with this patient expression, like she could wait all night if necessary, until I stopped performing and started talking about how I actually felt. At first it was uncomfortable. The silences between us felt like tests I didn't know how to pass. I'd catch myself rushing to fill them with anything, just to make the awkwardness go away. But Lily never seemed uncomfortable. She'd just sit there, calm and present, like silence was perfectly natural. One evening, about a month in, we were walking through downtown after seeing a movie. It was one of those perfect fall nights where the air is crisp but not cold, and the city lights make everything glow. Lily asked me about my family. I launched into my usual stories. The funny ones, the ones that made my childhood sound like a sitcom, my dad's terrible jokes, my mom's cooking disasters, the time my little brother got stuck in a tree and the fire department had to get him down. "That's not what I asked," Lily said, stopping on the sidewalk. "What do you mean? I just told you about my family. You told me stories. Party stories. The kind you've probably told 100 times. I want to know what they're actually like. What it was really like growing up." I felt something tighten in my chest. It was fine, normal, Dave. She said my name like it was a question. I looked away from her, watching cars pass by on the street. My dad left when I was 10. Just walked out one day and never came back. He sends a birthday card sometimes, but that's about it. "I'm sorry. It's fine. It was a long time ago. How did your mom handle it?" I'd never really talked about this with anyone. Not seriously. She got quiet. The house got really quiet after he left. It was like all the sound had been sucked out of our lives. My brother would go to his room and close the door. My mom would sit in front of the TV, not really watching anything, and I just couldn't take the silence. It felt like drowning. So I started talking, making jokes, telling stories, anything to fill the quiet because the quiet reminded us all of what was missing. Lily didn't say anything for a moment. Then she took my hand. "Is that why you do it? Fill the silence, I guess?" I'd never really thought about it before. I guess I learned that if I kept everyone entertained, kept everyone laughing, they wouldn't leave. They wouldn't get bored with me. "And you think I'll get bored? Won't you?" She squeezed my hand. No, Dave, I won't. But I need you to trust me enough to find out. We started walking again, hand in hand, and I felt something shift. Like a door opening in a room I didn't know existed. For the first time, I wasn't performing. I was just being honest. Just being myself. And she was still there. Over the next few weeks, I started practicing being quiet. Started practicing just existing without commentary. We'd have dinner, and instead of filling every second with conversation, I'd let silence happen. We'd watch movies, and I wouldn't feel the need to whisper funny observations during every scene. We'd sit in her apartment reading different books in the same room, and I'd fight the urge to break the peaceful quiet with some random thought. It was harder than I expected. My whole body would tense up during silences. My mind would race, trying to think of something clever to say. But Lily would just sit there, completely comfortable, showing me that silence wasn't empty. It was full of presence, full of connection, full of something I was just starting to understand. I was falling in love with her, the real kind, the scary kind, the kind that makes you realize you've been living behind a wall your whole life, and now someone's asking you to step out from behind it with no protection. And that's when I started getting scared. By February, I was completely in love with Lily. Like, wake up thinking about her, go to sleep thinking about her, can't imagine life without her kind of love. And that terrified me. Because the more authentic I became with her, the more vulnerable I felt. It was like I'd been wearing armor my whole life and I hadn't even realized it. The constant talking, the jokes, the stories, the charm, all of it was protection. A way to keep people at arm's length while making them think they were getting close. And Lily was asking me to take it all off and just stand there exposed and real. What if the real me wasn't enough? What if underneath all the performance I was actually boring? What if she realized she'd fallen in love with the idea of me, not the actual me? The doubts crept in slowly at first, then faster. I started falling back into old patterns without even noticing. Phone conversations became me talking at her instead of with her. I'd fill our calls with funny stories from work, interesting articles I'd read, plans for exciting things we could do together. Anything to avoid those deep, quiet moments that made me feel so exposed. I started planning elaborate dates again. Not just dinner and a movie. No, I'd plan entire days. Brunch at this trendy place downtown. Then we'd go to that new museum exhibit. Then there was this concert I could get tickets to. Then maybe we'd check out that bar that just opened. Every minute scheduled. Every moment filled with activity. If we were busy enough, we wouldn't have time for quiet. For honesty. For her to look at me and realize I wasn't as interesting as she thought. One Saturday in late February, I was explaining my plan for the day to Lily. We were at my apartment, sitting on my couch, and I had the whole thing mapped out on my phone. I was going through the schedule, talking fast, excited, selling her on how great it was all going to be. So we'll hit brunch at 10. That gives us time to get to the museum by noon. The exhibit is supposed to be incredible. Everyone's talking about it. Then the concert starts at 7, but I figured we could grab dinner before. There's this new Italian place that got amazing reviews, and then after the concert, maybe drinks. There's this rooftop bar that just opened, and apparently the view is insane, and... Dave, stop. Her voice was firm. Not mean, not angry, but serious in a way I hadn't heard before. It made me stop mid-sentence. What's wrong? I asked. I thought you'd be excited. I put a lot of thought into this. I know you did. That's the problem. What? Lily turned to face me fully on the couch. What are you afraid of? I'm not afraid. I'm excited. I thought we could have a really fun day and, Dave, that smile. But different this time, challenging. Like she was daring me to be honest. What are you really afraid of? Every instinct in me wanted to deflect. Laugh it off. Make a joke about being afraid she'd get hungry if we didn't plan enough meal stops. Change the subject. Ask her what she wanted to do instead. Any of my usual moves to avoid the real question, but something about the way she was looking at me made it impossible to lie. I'm afraid you'll get bored, I said quietly. The words felt like they were being dragged out of me. I'm afraid that if we just exist together without all the entertainment and the plans and the interesting activities, you'll realize I'm actually kind of boring, that there's nothing special about me, that the only thing I have to offer is keeping you busy enough that you don't notice there's nothing underneath. There. I'd said it, the truth I'd been running from for months. Maybe for my whole life. Lily moved closer to me, took my hand. Can I tell you something? I nodded, not trusting my voice. The entertainment is what's boring, Dave. I don't need another performer. I don't need someone to plan my life and fill every second with activities. I need you. The real you. The parts you think aren't good enough. The quiet parts. The vulnerable parts. The parts you've spent your whole life hiding. But what if those parts are boring? They're not. Trust me, they're not. The most boring thing in the world is watching someone perform all the time. It's exhausting. I can't get close to you when you're always being entertaining. Do you understand that? I didn't say anything. I was too busy trying not to cry, which was ridiculous because I never cried. Hadn't cried since I was a kid. But her words had hit something deep, something I'd kept locked away for so long I'd forgotten it was there. Can we cancel all the plans? I asked, my voice rough. Can we just stay here today? No schedule. No activities, just this? Lily smiled. The real smile. The one that had started everything. I'd love that. We spent the whole day doing nothing. And it was the best day I'd had in years. We made breakfast together in my tiny kitchen, bumping into each other and laughing. We sat on my balcony and watched people walk by on the street below, making up stories about where they were going. We read books in the same room without feeling the need to comment on everything. We took a nap on the couch, just curled up together in the afternoon light. There were long stretches of silence. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to fill them. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of us just being together, just existing in the same space without performance or pretense. That night, lying in bed, Lily turned to me in the dark. Thank you, she said. For what? For being real with me today. For trusting me enough to just be yourself. I pulled her closer. I'm trying. It's hard, I know. But you're doing it. That's what matters. I fell asleep that night feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Actual, genuine peace. Not the high-energy buzz of being entertaining. Not the anxiety of keeping people interested. Just peace. But life has a way of testing you right when you think you've figured something out. Spring came to Seattle the way it always does. Slowly, then all at once, cherry blossoms exploding on trees. Rain turning from cold to warm. Everyone suddenly remembering what the sun looked like. But I barely noticed because my world was falling apart. My company announced restructuring in early March. Budget cuts, they called it. Which is corporate speak for we're firing a bunch of people. My whole department was on the chopping block. 20 people competing for maybe 10 positions. The rest would be let go. I went into survival mode. Started working 16-hour days. Came in early, left late. Volunteered for every project. Took on extra accounts. Sent emails at midnight to prove how dedicated I was. I had to be indispensable. Had to prove I was worth keeping. My relationship with Lily became secondary. I'd text her during the day. Quick messages. Busy, talk later. Swamped at work. Can't make dinner tonight, sorry. I kept telling myself she'd understand. This was important. My career was on the line. Everything I'd worked for was about to disappear. I didn't have time for long phone calls and emotional vulnerability. I had to focus. The apartment became a disaster zone. Takeout containers piling up. Papers everywhere. I stopped doing laundry. Stopped cleaning. Barely slept. Just worked and worked and worked, trying to outrun the fear that I wasn't good enough, that I'd never been good enough. That all my success had been smoke and mirrors and now everyone was about to figure it out. Lily gave me space at first. She understood pressure. But after 3 weeks of me barely responding to her messages, barely showing up for her, she stopped being patient. It was a Sunday morning. I'd been working since 6 a.m., sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by reports and spreadsheets, drinking my 4th cup of coffee even though my hands were already shaking. Someone knocked on my door. I ignored it, assuming it was a delivery or a neighbor. The knocking continued, louder, more insistent. I opened the door to find Lily standing there with 2 coffees and a bag of bagels from the place we used to go to together. "You haven't been answering your phone?" she said, walking past me into the apartment. I watched her take in the mess. The piles of papers, the dirty dishes, the clothes on the floor, the general chaos of someone barely holding it together. "I'm sorry," I started immediately. "I know I've been absent. Work is just crazy right now. But once this settles down, once I know my job is secure, things will go back to normal. I promise. I'll make it up to you. We can take that trip we talked about. I'll plan something really special and, Dave." She set the coffees down on my counter. "Stop. I'm just explaining. When are you going to stop doing this? Doing what? Working hard? I'm about to lose my job, Lily. I'm drowning here. Then let me help you. Her voice rose, which was rare. Lily almost never raised her voice. Stop trying to handle everything by yourself. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop hiding behind being busy. Just be real with me. I am being real. This is my life right now. This is reality. No. She shook her head. This is you running away, again. This is you putting the armor back on because you're scared. Every time things get hard, you do this. You retreat. You perform. You fill every second with activity so you don't have to feel anything. That's not fair, isn't it? She looked at me and I could see she was fighting back tears. I've been here for 3 weeks watching you disappear. Sending you messages you barely respond to. Offering to come over and you saying no. I know you're stressed. I know you're scared. But you won't let me in. You won't let me be there for you. Instead, you're just working yourself to death and pretending everything's fine when it's clearly not. I'm trying to save my career. At what cost, Dave? Your health? Your relationships? Your sanity? Look at yourself. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours? When's the last time you ate real food instead of takeout? When's the last time you did anything except work? I didn't have an answer. Because she was right. I knew she was right. But admitting it felt like admitting failure. Like admitting I couldn't handle it. Something in me cracked. Maybe it was 3 weeks of running on empty. Maybe it was the fear I'd been pushing down finally breaking through. Maybe it was seeing the hurt in Lily's eyes and realizing I was doing to her exactly what I'd promised myself I wouldn't do. I sank down onto my couch, put my head in my hands, and for the second time in my adult life, I cried in front of someone. I cried about the job I was probably going to lose, about how my entire identity was wrapped up in being successful, and I didn't know who I was without it. About how I'd built my whole life on performance and charm, and now it felt like the foundation was cracking. About how scared I was, how tired I was, how I didn't know how to stop running. Lily sat down next to me. She didn't try to fix anything, didn't tell me it would all work out, didn't offer platitudes about doors closing and windows opening. She just sat there with me, her hand on my back, letting me fall apart. When I finally ran out of tears, when I was just sitting there feeling empty and raw, she took my face in her hands and made me look at her, and she smiled. That slow, knowing smile that had changed my life 9 months ago. There you are, she whispered. This is who I love. Not the guy who has it all figured out. Not the performer. Not the successful salesman. This you, scared and messy and real. But what if I lose the job? What if I'm not successful anymore? Then you lose the job, and we'll figure it out, together, if you let me. Why do you want to be with someone who's this much of a mess? She laughed softly. Dave, we're all a mess. The difference is you've spent your whole life pretending you're not. I don't want to be with perfect. I want to be with real. I lost my job 3 days later. They called me into the office on a Wednesday afternoon and gave me the speech about how it wasn't personal, how they valued my contributions, how they'd provide a good reference. They gave me a box for my desk items and walked me out. I called Lily from my car in the parking lot. I got let go. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm coming over. She showed up an hour later with groceries and cleaning supplies. We spent the evening cleaning my apartment together. She didn't try to cheer me up or tell me everything happens for a reason. She just helped me clean. And somehow that's exactly what I needed. That night, sitting on my clean couch in my clean apartment, I realized something. I'd spent my whole life thinking my value came from what I did. From being successful, from being entertaining, from being impressive. But Lily was showing me something different. She was showing me that my value came from just being me, messy, scared, imperfect me. It was the most valuable lesson I'd ever learned, and it came from losing everything I thought mattered. Losing my job should have been the worst thing that ever happened to me. But looking back now, it was the best. For the first time since I was a teenager, I had no choice but to stop, to just exist without the performance, without the constant hustle, without proving my worth to everyone around me. The first week was hard. I woke up every morning with anxiety clawing at my chest, reaching for my phone to check work emails before remembering I didn't have work anymore. I'd pace around my apartment trying to figure out what to do with myself. My brain kept screaming at me to do something productive. Update my resume, start networking, apply for jobs, fix this, fix everything. But Lily had a different idea. She came over that first Monday morning, the day I should have been going to work, and found me already dressed in business casual, laptop open, typing furiously on my resume. "What are you doing?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "I'm job hunting. I need to get back out there before—" "No." She closed my laptop. "You don't. Lily, I can't just sit here doing nothing. I have bills. I have rent. I need to— You have savings. You told me you've been saving for years. You have at least 6 months before you need to worry about money, so you're not going to worry about it for at least a month. You're going to take a month off, just to breathe." "A month? I can't take a month off. The longer I'm unemployed, the worse it looks to potential employers. I need to—" "Dave," she took my hands. "What do you need?" "Really need?" "Not what you think you should do. What do you actually need right now?" I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because when I really thought about it, when I pushed past the panic and the shoulds and the have-tos, I knew what I needed. I needed to stop. "I need to rest," I admitted. "I'm so tired." "Then rest. Take a month. Figure out who you are without the job, without the performance. And then, when you're ready, you can figure out what comes next." So that's what I did. The first few days were agonizing. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd start projects and abandon them. I'd pick up my phone every 5 minutes. I'd think about work stuff and then remember I didn't have work stuff to think about. It felt like withdrawal, like I was detoxing from constant productivity. But slowly something shifted. I started taking long walks, not for exercise, not because I was supposed to, just because I wanted to see the city. I'd walk for hours with no destination, just exploring neighborhoods I'd lived near for years but never really looked at. I started journaling, just writing whatever came into my head. No plan, no purpose, just thoughts spilling onto paper. Some of it was dark. Fears about the future, anger at my old company, shame about who I'd been. But some of it was hopeful. Ideas about who I wanted to be. Reflections on what actually mattered. I called my mom. Had a real conversation with her for the first time in years. Asked her about her life instead of just filling the call with updates about mine. She told me she'd been worried about me, that I'd seemed stressed for years, that she was glad I finally had a break, even if the circumstances weren't ideal. I met up with my little brother for coffee. His name's Ryan. He's 28, works in tech, has his whole life together in a way I'd never quite managed. We'd always been close when we were kids, but somewhere along the way I'd gotten too busy for him, too focused on my own career to pay attention to his life. "How's work going?" I asked him. He shrugged. "It's okay. Kind of boring, honestly, but it pays well." In the past, I would have launched into advice, told him about career strategies, networking tips, how to climb the ladder. But this time I just listened. "Are you happy?" I asked. He looked surprised by the question. "I don't know. I guess I never really thought about it. I just kind of do what I'm supposed to do, you know?" "Yeah,